He had everything money could buy, yet he was empty inside. Then one cold morning, a little girl snatched his wallet and ran. He chased her through the streets, angry, ready to call the police. But when he finally caught her, he didn't find a thief. He found a child, scared and hungry, fighting to save her dying mother. That moment didn't just change his day, it changed his heart forever. This is the story of how a stolen wallet became the key to a broken man's redemption, and the start of a family he never saw coming. Welcome to Voice of Granny. While you are here, please hit the subscribe button and comment your view on the story and where you're watching from. Sometimes life changes in the most unexpected ways. Sometimes it takes just one moment, one decision, to completely turn everything upside down. This is a story about a man named James Richardson, and how a simple Tuesday afternoon changed his life forever. James was what you'd call successful. Really successful. He owned one of the biggest investment firms in Chicago, lived in a penthouse overlooking Lake Michigan, and wore suits that cost more than most people's monthly rent. His calendar was packed with meetings, his phone never stopped buzzing, and his world ran like clockwork. Precise, organized, controlled. On this particular afternoon, James stepped out of his downtown office building. The summer heat hit him like a wave as he adjusted his tie and checked his watch. A silver Rolex that gleamed in the sunlight. He had exactly 15 minutes to get to his next appointment. Time was money, and James didn't waste either. The sidewalk was crowded, like it always was in the Loop. Tourists with cameras, business people rushing past, street musicians playing for spare change. James navigated through it all with practiced ease, his mind already on the conference call scheduled for later that evening. Then it happened. A bump. Quick and light. Just a brush against his side as someone squeezed past him. James barely registered it until his hand instinctively went to his jacket pocket. Empty. His wallet was gone. He spun around, scanning the crowd, and that's when he saw her. A young girl, maybe 11 or 12 years old, weaving through the people with his wallet clutched against her chest. She was small, dressed in clothes that had seen better days, and she was fast. Really fast. "Hey!" James shouted. "Stop!" But she didn't stop. She ran. And without even thinking about it, James ran too. Now, you have to understand, James Richardson hadn't run anywhere in years except on his private gym treadmill. But something about this moment, about seeing this kid stealing from him in broad daylight, lit a fire inside him. Pride, maybe. Or anger. Or just the simple fact that nobody made a fool of James Richardson. He chased her down State Street, dodging past confused pedestrians and nearly knocking over a hot dog cart. His expensive leather shoes weren't made for running, and his suit jacket flapped behind him like a cape. The girl was quick, darting left and right, but James was determined. She took a sharp turn into an alley between two old brick buildings. James followed, his breath coming hard now, sweat starting to bead on his forehead. The alley was narrow, lined with dumpsters and fire escapes, and it smelled like old grease and garbage. The girl looked back once, her eyes wide, and that's when she stumbled. Her worn-out sneaker caught on a broken piece of pavement, and she went down hard, skidding on her hands and knees. James caught up to her, breathing heavy, and stood there blocking the only way out. The alley dead-ended into a brick wall covered in old graffiti. There was nowhere left to run. "Give it back," James said, his voice firm but strained from the run. "Right now." The girl slowly got to her feet. Her hands were scraped and bleeding a little from the fall. Her dark hair was messy, falling into her face, and her clothes, now that James really looked at them, were practically falling apart. But it was her eyes that stopped him. They weren't defiant or cruel. They were tired, exhausted in a way that no child's eyes should be. She held out the wallet with shaking hands. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm really sorry." James took it from her, checking inside. Everything was still there. Credit cards, cash, his license. He should have felt relieved. Should have felt vindicated. Instead, he felt something else entirely. Something uncomfortable. "What's your name?" he asked, his tone a little softer now. "Mia," she said quietly, looking at her feet. "Mia what?" "Just Mia." James studied her. Really looked at her for the first time. The tooth-thin arms. The shoes held together with duct tape. The way she kept glancing toward the alley entrance like she was calculating whether she could still make a run for it. "Why'd you take my wallet, Mia?" She didn't answer right away. When she finally spoke, her voice cracked. "My mom needs medicine. She's sick. Really sick. I tried asking people for money, but nobody stops." Nobody listens. I didn't know what else to do. James felt his jaw tighten. He'd heard every excuse in the book over the years. Every sob story designed to manipulate, to take advantage. He knew better than to fall for this kind of thing. But something in her voice made him pause. "Where's your mom now?" he asked. "At home. She can't get out of bed. Please, I need to get back to her." James looked at this girl, this scared, desperate kid standing in a dirty alley with scraped hands and tears starting to form in her eyes, and he made a decision that surprised even himself. "Show me," he said. Mia blinked. "What?" "Take me to your mom. Show me she's real. Show me this isn't just a story." For a long moment, Mia just stared at him. Then slowly she nodded. And just like that, James Richardson followed a girl who'd just robbed him deeper into the parts of Chicago he'd spent his whole adult life avoiding. The walk felt longer than it probably was. Mia led James through neighborhoods that got rougher with each block. The gleaming skyscrapers of downtown faded behind them, replaced by crumbling brick buildings with boarded-up windows and streets full of potholes. James noticed everything. The way Mia kept her head down as they passed groups of teenagers on corners. The way she automatically moved to the inside of the sidewalk, closer to the buildings, like she'd learned it was safer there. The way she walked with purpose, like she'd made this journey 1,000 times before. They didn't talk much. James was too busy processing what he was doing. This was insane. He should have called the police. Should have let them handle it. Instead, here he was, following a stranger into unfamiliar territory, his expensive suit drawing stares from everyone they passed. Finally, Mia stopped in front of a rundown apartment building that looked like it should have been condemned years ago. The front door hung crooked on its hinges. The windows were covered with sheets instead of curtains. Trash littered the small front yard. "We're on the 3rd floor," Mia said quietly, pushing open the door. Inside was worse. The hallway smelled like mold and something else James couldn't quite identify. Dampness, maybe. Decay. The single light bulb flickered overhead, casting strange shadows on the peeling wallpaper. Somewhere above them, a baby cried. Somewhere else, a TV blared too loud. They climbed the stairs, each step creaking under their weight. James's heart was pounding, and not just from the climb. A voice in his head kept asking what he was doing here, what he was trying to prove. Mia stopped at a door with the number 3 barely hanging on by one screw. She pulled a key from her pocket and opened it. The apartment was tiny. One main room that served as kitchen, living room, and bedroom all at once. There was a small mattress on the floor in one corner, a card table with a wobbly leg, and a fan that turned slowly, barely moving the hot, stale air. And in an old armchair near the window sat a woman. At first, James thought she was sleeping. Her head was tilted back, her eyes closed, her breathing shallow and raspy. She was maybe in her 30s, but she looked older, worn down. Her skin had a grayish tint, and even from across the room, James could see the sweat on her forehead. "Mom," Mia said softly, rushing to her side. "Mom, I'm back." The woman's eyes fluttered open. It took her a moment to focus, and when she did, her gaze moved from Mia to James with confusion and alarm. "Mia," she croaked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Who is that? What's going on?" "It's okay, Mom. He's here to help." The woman tried to sit up straighter, but winced in pain. "We don't need help." "Mia, what did you do?" James stepped forward slowly, hands raised slightly, trying to appear non-threatening. "Ma'am, my name is James. Your daughter, she borrowed my wallet to try to get you medicine. I just wanted to see if what she told me was true." The woman, Sarah, as Mia called her, looked mortified. Tears filled her eyes. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know she was. I would never. Please don't call the police. She's a good girl. She's just scared." "I'm not calling the police," James heard himself say. The words surprised him. He looked around the apartment again, really taking it in this time. The empty medicine bottles on the table. The medical bills stacked in a pile, all stamped with red past due notices. The sparse food in the tiny kitchen area. Just crackers and a few cans of soup. This wasn't a con. This was real. This was a mother and daughter barely surviving, hanging on by a thread. Sarah started coughing then, a deep, rattling cough that shook her whole body. Mia grabbed a cloth and held it to her mother's mouth, whispering soothing words. When the coughing finally stopped, there were spots of blood on the cloth. James felt something cold settle in his stomach. "How long has she been like this?" "It got bad yesterday," Mia said, not looking at him. "She has a heart condition. She needs medication to keep it stable, but we ran out 3 days ago. The pharmacy won't refill it without payment up front. And we don't have insurance. We don't have anything. Sarah tried to speak, but couldn't get the words out. Her breathing was getting worse, shorter, more labored. James made a decision. He pulled out his phone. I'm calling an ambulance. No. Mia grabbed his arm. Please, we can't afford it. They'll just send us another bill we can't pay. Last time we went to the emergency room, they made us wait 6 hours and then sent us home with Tylenol. I don't care about the cost, James said firmly. Your mother needs help right now. He dialed 911, gave the address, explained the situation. The dispatcher said an ambulance would be there in less than 10 minutes. Those 10 minutes felt like hours. Sarah's breathing got worse. Her lips started to turn a slight blue. Mia held her hand, crying now, begging her mom to stay awake, to keep breathing, to not leave her. James knelt beside them, feeling completely helpless. All his money, all his power and connections, and in this moment, he couldn't do anything except wait. When the paramedics finally burst through the door, they moved with quick efficiency. Checking vitals, asking questions, loading Sarah onto a stretcher. James gave them his insurance information without hesitation, told them to do whatever was necessary. As they carried Sarah out, Mia tried to climb into the ambulance with her. One of the paramedics stopped her gently. You'll have to follow separately, sweetheart. Mia looked panicked, lost. James put a hand on her shoulder. Come on. I'll drive you. We'll be right behind them. And as they rushed down those creaking stairs and out into the harsh sunlight, James Richardson realized that somewhere in the last hour, everything had changed. This wasn't about a stolen wallet anymore. This was about something much bigger. Something that mattered in a way his business deals and board meetings never had. This was about two people who needed help. And for the first time in a very long time, James wanted to give it. The hospital was chaos. Bright lights, beeping machines, people rushing everywhere in scrubs. James had been in hospitals before, visiting colleagues after surgeries, attending charity fundraisers. But this was different. This was the emergency room at County General, where people came when they had nowhere else to go. He kept close to Mia as they followed the gurney carrying Sarah through the automatic doors. A nurse stopped them at the entrance to the treatment area. Family only beyond this point, she said. Mia's face crumpled. That's my mom. I need to be with her. The nurse's expression softened. I know, honey, but you'll have to wait here while the doctors examine her. We'll come get you as soon as we can, okay? They directed Mia to a waiting area filled with uncomfortable plastic chairs and a TV nobody was watching. James sat down beside her, feeling out of place in his now wrinkled suit. Mia pulled her knees up to her chest and wrapped her arms around them, making herself as small as possible. She's going to be okay, James said, though he had no idea if that was true. Mia didn't respond. She just stared at the doors where they'd taken her mother, tears silently sliding down her cheeks. Time crawled. Minutes felt like hours. James made phone calls, rearranging meetings, canceling appointments. His assistant sounded confused. James Richardson never canceled anything. But he couldn't leave. Not now. Finally, after what felt like forever, a doctor approached them. She was young, with tired eyes and her dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. Are you family? She asked, looking at James. James hesitated. I'm with Mia. Her mother, Sarah, how is she? The doctor knelt down to Mia's level. Your mom is very sick, sweetheart. Her heart is having trouble working properly. We're doing tests right now to figure out exactly what's wrong and how we can help her. Can I see her? Mia's voice was small, broken. Soon. I promise. We just need a little more time. After the doctor left, James noticed two police officers entering the ER. His heart sank when they walked straight toward them. The older officer, a heavy-set man with gray at his temples, pulled out a small notebook. We got a report about a theft earlier today. A wallet stolen in the loop. The description matches this young lady. Mia went rigid beside James. That's been resolved, James said quickly. She returned everything. No harm done. The officer's expression didn't change. Sir, according to our records, this isn't the first time. The young lady has a previous citation for shoplifting from a convenience store 2 months ago. We're going to need to take her down to the station for questioning. No, Mia whispered. No, please. My mom. I can't leave my mom. You can't take her, James said, standing up. Her mother is critically ill. She needs to be here. Sir, this is procedure. The girl needs to come with us. Something inside James snapped. He stepped between the officer and Mia, his voice firm and cold in a way that usually made boardrooms fall silent. Listen to me very carefully. This child just watched her mother collapse. She's 11 years old and terrified. You want to arrest someone? Arrest me for obstruction. But you're not taking her anywhere. The officers exchanged glances. The younger one reached for his radio, but James cut him off. I'm James Richardson. I own Richardson Capital. I have lawyers on speed dial who'll have this tied up in paperwork for weeks. Or you can show some basic human compassion and let this child stay with her dying mother. Your choice. The silence stretched. Finally, the older officer sighed. We'll wait, but we're not leaving. They sat down across the waiting area, watching. James sat back down next to Mia and put his arm around her shoulders. She was shaking. It's okay, he said softly. I won't let them take you. I promise. Another hour passed. Then a different doctor appeared, this one older, with silver hair and a grave expression. He introduced himself as Dr. Carter, the cardiologist. We've stabilized Ms. Thompson for now, he said. But I need to be honest with you. Her heart is in severe failure. The condition has advanced further than we initially thought. She needs immediate intervention. What kind of intervention? James asked. Dr. Carter pulled up a chair. There's a new medication that's shown promising results in cases like this. It's called Cardixin. The problem is, it's not widely available yet in the United States. It's still in the approval process. We'd have to get it brought in from Europe. So bring it in, James said. Whatever it costs. Mr. Richardson, we're talking about somewhere in the range of $50,000 to $70,000 for the medication alone, plus the specialized procedure to administer it. And there's no guarantee it'll work. It's experimental. High risk. I don't care about the cost. What happens if we don't try it? Dr. Carter's expression said everything. Without intervention, I'd estimate she has less than 48 hours. Mia made a sound like a wounded animal. James pulled her closer. How fast can you get the medication? He asked. If I make calls right now? Maybe by morning. But I need consent. Written consent acknowledging all the risks. You'll have it. Do whatever you need to do. As Dr. Carter hurried away, James looked down at Mia. Her face was buried against his shoulder, and he could feel her tears soaking through his shirt. She can't die, Mia whispered. She's all I have. I don't have anyone else. James felt something crack open inside his chest. This wasn't pity. This was something deeper, more painful. This was seeing clearly, maybe for the first time in years, what actually mattered. You're not alone, he said, and he meant it with every fiber of his being. I'm here, and we're going to fight for her. Together. The night was long and dark. James stayed in that uncomfortable chair. Mia curled up beside him with his suit jacket draped over her like a blanket. The police officers eventually left, but not before making it clear they'd be back. Around 3 a.m., a nurse brought them to see Sarah. She was unconscious, surrounded by machines and tubes, her face pale as paper. Mia held her mother's hand and whispered things James couldn't hear. James stood in the doorway and made a silent promise. Whatever it took, however much it cost, he would save this family. Because somewhere in the chaos of this impossible day, they'd stopped being strangers. They'd become something more. The medication arrived at 6:47 a.m. James knew because he'd been watching the clock, counting every minute. He'd barely slept, just dozed off and on in that hard plastic chair, always waking when Mia stirred or when the nurses came to check vitals. Dr. Carter appeared with a small cooler and a team of specialists James hadn't seen before. They moved with purpose, speaking in medical terms he didn't fully understand, but that sounded serious. Grave. Life or death serious. We need to move fast, Dr. Carter said to James. The medication has a narrow window of effectiveness. But I need you to understand the risks one more time. We're essentially going to stop her heart, administer the drug, and restart it. If it doesn't work, if something goes wrong, we might not be able to bring her back. Mia's hand tightened in James's. Will it save her? She asked, her voice barely audible. It's our best chance, Dr. Carter said honestly. Maybe our only chance. James looked at the consent forms in front of him. All those legal words about liability and experimental procedures, and acknowledging the possibility of death. His hand hovered over the line where he needed to sign. Why are you hesitating? Mia asked, looking up at him with those huge, scared eyes. Because, James said slowly, I'm scared too. I'm scared of making the wrong choice. Of something happening to your mom because of a decision I made. But you said we'd fight for her. Together. James felt the weight of those words. He'd made a lot of promises in his life. Business promises, legal promises, promises that were really just contracts in disguise. But this was different. This was a promise to a child who'd already lost so much. A promise that actually meant something. He signed the form. They let Mia see her mother one more time before the procedure. James watched from the doorway as Mia leaned over the hospital bed, whispering in her mother's ear. I love you, Mom. Please fight. Please come back to me. You're the strongest person I know. You can do this. Sarah's eyes flickered open briefly. She couldn't speak because of the tubes, but her hand squeezed Mia's weakly. A single tear rolled down her cheek. Then they took her away to the surgical suite, and all James and Mia could do was wait again. The waiting room had filled up as morning came. Other families dealing with their own emergencies, their own fears. James bought Mia breakfast from the cafeteria, though she barely touched it. He made more calls, this time to his lawyers, setting things in motion that he hadn't fully thought through but knew were necessary. 3 hours passed. The longest 3 hours of James's life. When Dr. Carter finally appeared, still in his surgical scrubs, James couldn't read his expression. The doctor looked exhausted, but there was something else there too. The procedure was successful, he said, and James felt Mia's entire body sag with relief against him. We had a few tense moments, but Ms. Thompson responded to the medication. Her heart is beating on its own, and it's stronger than it was. She's not out of danger yet, but she made it through. Mia started crying, really crying, the kind of tears that come from deep inside where all the fear has been stored. James held her, and he realized his own eyes were wet too. There's something else, Dr. Carter said, his expression turning serious. The cardiac arrest caused some complications. There appears to be nerve damage affecting the lower half of her body. We won't know the full extent until she's more stable, but it's possible she may have lost mobility in her legs. The joy dimmed slightly. You mean she might not walk again? James asked. It's too early to say definitively, but you should prepare for that possibility. After the doctor left, Mia looked up at James. My mom is alive. That's what matters. Everything else we'll figure out. Right. James nodded, struck by this child's resilience. Right. We'll figure it out together. Over the next few days, Sarah slowly regained consciousness. She was weak, confused, and when she finally understood what had happened, she cried. Not just from pain or fear, but from something deeper. Gratitude mixed with shame, relief mixed with worry about what came next. James visited every day. He brought Mia clean clothes, food, books to read while they waited. He arranged for a social worker to help with paperwork. He made calls to specialists about rehabilitation and physical therapy. And he did something else too. Something he'd never done before. He sat with them. Really sat, not checking his phone every 5 minutes or thinking about the next meeting. He listened to Mia's stories about school and her friends. He listened to Sarah talk about her life, about how she'd been a nurse before her own health problems made it impossible to work, about how hard she'd tried to give Mia a good life despite everything. One evening, after Mia had fallen asleep in the chair beside her mother's bed, Sarah looked at James with tears in her eyes. Why are you doing this? She asked. You don't know us. You don't owe us anything. If anything, we owe you after what Mia did. James thought about that for a long time before answering. I've spent my whole life chasing success, building wealth, proving I was the smartest guy in the room. And somewhere along the way, I forgot what any of it was for. Then your daughter stole my wallet, and for the first time in 20 years, I felt something real. Something that actually mattered. We can't pay you back, Sarah whispered. Not for the medical bills, not for any of this. I don't want you to pay me back. I want you and Mia to have a chance. A real chance. That's all. Sarah reached out and took his hand. You're a good man, James Richardson. He shook his head. I'm really not. But maybe I'm trying to be. When Sarah was finally stable enough to be moved to a rehabilitation facility, James had already arranged everything. The best facility in Chicago, private room, top specialists. He'd also done something else. He'd made an offer. Come stay at my place, he said to both of them. I have way too much space. And Mia can't go back to that apartment by herself. You'll need help during recovery anyway. At least until you figure out what's next. Sarah started to protest, but James held up his hand. This isn't charity. This is what people do for each other. Or what they should do anyway. Let me help. Please. Sarah looked at Mia, who was looking at James with something like hope in her eyes. Then she looked back at James and slowly nodded. Okay, she said. But just until I can work again, until we can stand on our own. James smiled. We'll see about that. The first morning in James's house, Mia woke up and thought she was dreaming. The bedroom was bigger than their entire old apartment had been. The bed was soft, with clean sheets that smelled like lavender. Through the huge windows, she could see Lake Michigan stretching out forever, the morning sun making the water sparkle like diamonds. She lay there for a moment, almost afraid to move, afraid that if she did, she'd wake up back in that cramped, moldy apartment with her mom sick in the chair and no money for medicine. But then she heard sounds from downstairs. Voices. The clatter of dishes. And she smelled coffee and something else. Pancakes, maybe? She got up and padded downstairs in the pajamas James had bought her. New pajamas, soft and warm, with little stars on them. The staircase curved elegantly, her hand sliding along the smooth wood banister. Everything was beautiful but not cold. James had told her to make herself at home, and he seemed to mean it. In the kitchen, she found her mom sitting at the table in her wheelchair, wrapped in a soft robe, looking out at the lake. James was at the stove, wearing jeans and a t-shirt instead of his usual suit, flipping pancakes like he'd done it 1,000 times. Morning, sleepyhead, he said with a smile. Hope you're hungry. Mia couldn't help it. She started crying. Not sad crying, but the kind of crying that comes when something is too good, too overwhelming, too different from everything you've known. Sarah wheeled over and pulled Mia into a hug. It's okay, baby. It's okay to be happy. And that was the thing, wasn't it? Mia had almost forgotten what happy felt like. The weeks that followed were an adjustment for everyone. James hired a nurse to help with Sarah's care and physical therapy. He enrolled Mia in a good school nearby, making sure she had everything she needed. Clothes, supplies, a backpack that didn't have holes in it. But it wasn't all smooth. Sarah struggled with her new reality. The wheelchair frustrated her. She was used to being independent, to taking care of Mia on her own, and having to rely on others made her feel helpless. Some days she was angry. Some days she cried. James gave her space when she needed it, but was always there with a quiet word of encouragement when she was ready. Mia struggled too. At school, some kids were nice, but others weren't. They whispered about her, called her names, said she was only there because some rich guy felt sorry for her. One boy, Tyler, was particularly cruel. He said loudly in the cafeteria that James had probably bought her, that she wasn't really part of a family, just some charity case. Mia came home that day with red eyes and wouldn't talk about what happened. But Sarah knew. Mothers always know. She talked to James about it that evening after Mia went to bed. Maybe this was a mistake, Sarah said quietly. Maybe we don't belong in this world. These people, they're never going to accept us. James sat down across from her. You're right. Some of them won't. But that's their problem, not yours. And Mia is stronger than they know. Stronger than I think even she knows. The next week, Mia asked James if she could do something special. She wanted to have a few classmates over, to show them her new home, to let them see her life wasn't a lie. James agreed immediately. They planned a small gathering, nothing fancy. Just burgers on the grill, games in the backyard, swimming in the pool. Mia invited 5 kids from school, including Tyler, who surprisingly said yes. The day of the party, Mia was nervous. She helped James set up, changed her outfit 3 times, kept asking if everything looked okay. It looks perfect, James assured her. And remember, you have nothing to prove to anyone. You're home. This is your place too. When the kids arrived, there was the expected awkwardness at first. But then something shifted. They saw that Mia wasn't showing off. She was just sharing. She introduced them to her mom, who was kind and funny, and asked them about their lives. She showed them her room, which wasn't some princess palace, but just a normal room with books and drawings on the walls. Tyler stood by the pool, watching everything with a strange expression. Finally, he approached Mia. Your mom seems nice, he said. It wasn't an apology, but it was something. She is, Mia said. She's the best person I know. And that guy, James, is he like your dad now or something? Mia thought about that. He's family. I don't know what else to call it. But he's real. This is real. Tyler nodded slowly. I'm sorry I said that stuff. At school. I was being a jerk. Yeah, you were, Mia agreed. But thanks for saying sorry. That night, after everyone left, the 3 of them sat on the back patio. Sarah in her wheelchair, Mia curled up on the outdoor couch, James in a chair nearby. The sun was setting over the lake, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. "You know what?" Sarah said suddenly. "I've been thinking about something. When I was in the hospital, when I thought I might die, all I could think about was Mia. What would happen to her? Who would take care of her? And now I don't have to wonder anymore." She looked at James. "You saved my life. Not just with the medicine and the doctors, but with this. With giving us a home. With showing Mia that there are still good people in the world. I don't have words big enough to say thank you." James felt his throat tighten. "You don't have to thank me. You two gave me something I didn't even know I was missing." "What's that?" Mia asked. "A reason," James said simply. "I spent so long working and building and achieving, but I never stopped to ask why. What was it all for? And then I met you both, and suddenly I knew. It's for this. For moments like this. For family." Sarah reached out and took his hand. Mia got up and wrapped her arms around both of them. And in that moment, with the sunset painting everything gold, three people who'd started as strangers became something more. A family. Not perfect, not traditional, but real. Weeks turned into months. Sarah's physical therapy showed slow, but steady progress. She regained some feeling in her legs, though doctors said she'd probably always need assistance. She started taking online classes to update her nursing credentials, determined to find a way to contribute. Mia thrived at school. She made real friends, kids who liked her for who she was, not what she had. Her grades improved. She joined the art club. She smiled more. And James? James changed in ways he never expected. He started leaving work early to have dinner with his new family. He taught Mia how to swim properly. He played board games on Friday nights. He laughed more, worried less about things that didn't matter. His colleagues noticed the change. Some thought he'd lost his edge. But James didn't care. He'd found something more valuable than any business deal. One evening, 6 months after that fateful day, when a little girl had bumped into him and stolen his wallet, James came home with an envelope. "I have something for you both," he said. He handed the envelope to Sarah. Inside were legal documents, guardianship papers, adoption papers for Mia, with Sarah's consent. "I'm not trying to replace anyone," James said quickly. "And if you don't want this, that's okay too. But I want to make this official. I want you to know you're not guests here. This is your home. For as long as you want it to be." Sarah's hands shook as she read the papers. Tears streamed down her face. "You want to adopt Mia? I want to be her father. If she'll have me. And I want you to know that you're family too. Both of you." Mia looked at the papers, then at James. "Does this mean I can call you Dad?" James's voice cracked. "I'd like that very much." Mia launched herself at him, nearly knocking him over with the force of her hug. "I love you, Dad. I love you too, sweetheart." Sarah wheeled over and joined the embrace, all three of them holding each other and crying and laughing at the same time. Later that night, after Mia had gone to bed, Sarah and James sat together in the living room. The house was quiet except for the soft ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall. "You know," Sarah said softly, "when I was at my lowest point, lying in that chair in our old apartment, barely able to breathe, I prayed. I hadn't prayed in years, but I did that day. I asked for help. For some kind of miracle. Not for me, but for Mia. I couldn't stand the thought of leaving her alone in this world." She turned to look at James, her eyes shining. "And then you showed up. You chased my daughter down an alley, and instead of having her arrested, you saved us. You became the answer to a prayer I didn't think anyone was listening to." James shook his head. "I'm not anyone's miracle, Sarah. I'm just a man who got lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time." "No," Sarah said firmly. "You made a choice. You could have walked away at any point. After you got your wallet back, after you saw where we lived, after the hospital bills started adding up. But you didn't. You stayed. That wasn't luck. That was love." James was quiet for a moment. "You know what the funny thing is? I thought I was saving you. But really, you saved me. Both of you. I was living this empty life, surrounded by things that didn't matter, chasing goals that meant nothing. And then Mia stole my wallet and gave me something worth more than anything I'd ever owned. What's that? A family. A purpose. A reason to wake up in the morning that has nothing to do with stock prices or quarterly earnings. You gave me that." Sarah reached over and squeezed his hand. "Then I guess we saved each other." 6 months later, James stood in a courtroom, dressed in his best suit. Beside him were Sarah and Mia, both dressed up for the occasion. Sarah had managed to stand with the help of braces and crutches, determined to be on her feet for this moment. The judge, a kind-looking woman named Judge Martinez, reviewed the paperwork one final time. Then she looked up and smiled. "I've reviewed this case thoroughly," she said. "And I have to say, it's one of the most unusual adoption cases I've ever seen. But it's also one of the most clear-cut. Mr. Richardson, you've proven beyond any doubt that you're committed to this child's welfare. And Ms. Thompson, your consent and support speak volumes about your character and your love for your daughter." She turned to Mia. "Young lady, do you understand what's happening here today?" Mia nodded. "Yes, Your Honor. James is going to officially be my dad. And is that what you want?" "More than anything," Mia said, her voice strong and clear. Judge Martinez smiled and brought down her gavel. "Then it's my pleasure to grant this adoption. James Richardson, congratulations. You're officially a father." The small group that had gathered applauded. James's assistant was there, wiping tears from her eyes. Sarah's physical therapist had come. Even a few of Mia's school friends and their parents were there, showing support. But the best moment came when Mia turned to James and said, "Hi, Dad." James picked her up and hugged her tight, not caring that he was crying in front of everyone. "Hi, daughter." That evening, they celebrated with dinner at Mia's favorite restaurant, a little Italian place in the neighborhood. Nothing fancy, just good food and good company. Sarah had improved so much that she could walk short distances now with her crutches, and her doctors were optimistic she'd continue to gain strength. As they ate pasta and laughed at Mia's stories about school, James looked around the table and felt a contentment he'd never known existed. This wasn't the life he'd planned. It wasn't the life he'd imagined when he was building his empire and climbing the corporate ladder. It was so much better. "What are you thinking about?" Sarah asked, noticing his expression. "Just how one moment can change everything," James said. "How one decision, one choice to not look away, can lead to this." "Do you ever regret it?" Mia asked. "Like, your life was probably a lot simpler before we showed up." James reached over and ruffled her hair. "Simpler? Yes. Better? Not even close. You two are the best thing that ever happened to me. And I wouldn't change a single thing. Not even the part where I stole your wallet?" Mia asked with a mischievous grin. James laughed. "Especially not that part. Best thing anyone ever stole from me." As the months and years passed, their little family continued to grow and change. Sarah eventually returned to nursing part-time, working at a community clinic where she could sit when needed. She became an advocate for patients without insurance, helping them navigate a system she knew all too well. Mia grew into a confident teenager, her artistic talents blossoming. She started a program at her school to collect supplies for kids in need, remembering what it felt like to have nothing. She talked about becoming a social worker one day, about helping families like hers used to be. And James? He remained successful in business, but it no longer defined him. He became known for his philanthropy, specifically for programs helping single mothers and children in poverty. He funded medical clinics, scholarship programs, and housing initiatives. When people asked why, he always had the same answer. Because a little girl once took a chance on a stranger. She trusted me with her mother's life, with her own future. And that changed me. I'm just paying it forward. One day, 5 years after that chase through the Chicago streets, James was cleaning out his desk when he found it. His old wallet. The same one Mia had stolen that hot summer afternoon. He'd kept it, though he'd never used it again. He opened it and found something tucked inside that he didn't remember putting there. A piece of paper folded small. He opened it carefully. It was a drawing in crayon, clearly done by a child's hand. 3 stick figures holding hands. One tall, one medium, one small. Above it, in careful letters, "My family." Mia must have slipped it in there years ago. James stared at it, his vision blurring with tears, and felt his heart swell with love so powerful it almost hurt. He heard footsteps behind him and turned to see Sarah and Mia in the doorway. "What are you doing, Dad?" Mia asked. She was 16 now, tall and beautiful, but still his little girl. "Just remembering," James said, holding up the drawing. "Remembering the day my real life began." Mia came over and hugged him. "I'm glad I stole your wallet." James laughed through his tears. "Me too, sweetheart. Me too. You know, people always say that everything happens for a reason. That things work out the way they're supposed to." James used to think that was nonsense, just something people said to make themselves feel better about chaos and randomness. But now he believed it, because a stolen wallet led to a chase. A chase led to a truth led to a choice, and a choice led to a family. Not the family any of them had planned. Not the family that made sense on paper, but the family they all needed. the family they chose. And in the end, isn't that what family really is? Not just blood or law or obligation, but choice. Choosing to stay when you could leave. Choosing to love when it would be easier not to. Choosing to see people not for what they take, but for what they give. James Richardson learned that lesson from an 11-year-old girl in a dirty alley with scraped knees and desperate eyes. She stole his wallet and gave him something far more valuable in return. She gave him a daughter, a family, a purpose. She gave him everything that really mattered. And he would be grateful for that theft for the rest of his life. The end. Sometimes the things we lose lead us to what we're meant to find. Sometimes the people who seem to take from us are actually giving us exactly what we need. And sometimes, just sometimes, having your wallet stolen is the best thing that could ever happen to you.